Jiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Crackdown 2 on Xbox 360. Crackdown 2 was developed by Ruffian Games, which aside from a few 360 Connect games, haven't really done much else. Ruffian Games actually employed several people from the developer Real-Time Worlds, who were responsible for the first Crackdown game. Real-Time Worlds had to close due to some failures with their MMO third-person shooter APB in its aftermath. So, with the new Crackdown 3 Xbox One exclusive allegedly just around the corner, I thought it'd be a good time to revisit the series and see how 2 fares 6 years later. Crackdown puts you in the boots of a superpowered cop, only ever referred to as Agent. The director of the agency, voiced by Michael D. McConaughey, helped guide your path through Pacific City as you took down 3 massive gangs and restored peace to the city. Now in Crackdown 2, Pacific City faces a new threat of a freak virus that turns the population into hideous monsters. There's also an organization called the Cell, bent on taking down the agency with their own agenda. Allegedly, there's supposed to be some justification and make it seem like their leader is actually the one doing the right thing, but honestly, you get more story in the first minute and a half of the opening cinematic of fake newscasts than you do in the following 15 hours combined. So gameplay in short is one set of main missions to complete, reclaiming the Sunburst defense from Cell and the Freaks and activating it to purge the city. There are a few sets of side missions, like in order to gain new spawn and resupply points you have to clear out Cell strongholds. There are also freak holes that can be provoked and sealed during the nighttime when the freaks rush the city streets en masse. A clock or some type of counter would have been nice to help see the day-night cycle, as for some reason it was very hard to just look up and know whether it was dawn or dusk or even midnight half the time. Anyway, finally, there are 2 kinds of races you can participate in, both foot and vehicle. While foot races may at first sound kinda lame, when I said superpowered cop, I meant the kind that can leap tall buildings in a single bound. Well, maybe not tall buildings. And not a single bound, but more like grabbing things up the side. You see, you can level up your agent's agility by finding green orbs and winning said races. Each level increases the vertical leap by 5 to 15 feet, eventually allowing you quite the vertical. Unfortunately, it doesn't help your ability to cling to things any better. I and my co-op partner Velcro had several frustrating climbs. Sometimes not just grabbing a particular ledge, sometimes not understanding why you couldn't cling to something that looked very close to everything else. And oftentimes it just felt like the environments were created just to make you frustrated. And maybe we're just too used to something like Assassin's Creed, where climbing up nearly every building is encouraged. But Crackdown 2's large, sudden overhangs that weren't really visible from the street level that are all of a sudden stopping you got a bit frustrating. Anyway, by completing the vehicle races, you can also level up your driving skills, increasing both your level of control and giving you access to new and better vehicles. One of my biggest pet peeves in games where you level up driving is the amount of effort they go to make beginner cars and skill levels suck. No car could be manufactured that poorly and still be street legal. I mean, are we supposed to believe that this clone of an agent we play was constructed with the coordination to make crazy jumps, but not the basic driving skill of a 16-year-old?
Impressive. You've just registered a new personal...
You can find any of the game's activities on the map by looking for them one at a time, by pressing the start button, backing out, scrolling down to the choice of item you want, pressing the confirm button, and using the stick to navigate. I hope my tone conveyed the monotony and lack of convenience of this repetitive action. Your firearm skill levels up by shooting enemies, and the higher the skill, the faster your aim locks and the lower your recoil is. You open up new weapon choices by bringing enemy firearms back to a supply point, but you have to have a corresponding level of skill to drop it off and subsequently select it anytime you want from your arsenal. The explosive skill works the same way, with experience gains from throwing grenades, using explosive barrels in the environment, and taking enemies out with rocket and grenade launchers. Strength can be leveled up by meleeing enemies. As it levels up, it increases your punch and kick damage output, and eventually grants the ability to lift heavy objects like vehicles to use and throw in combat. Strength also increases the amount of life bars that you have, which is useful once your regenerating shield has been depleted. Speaking of combat, when you want to shoot some bad guys, you press the target lock button and your agent will select a target automatically. While locked, you can use the right stick to aim at a particular body part, or when you're locked on a car, you can aim for tires or a gas tank. It's actually pretty neat. But what happens when you want to switch to the target next to that one? You know, the guy launching rockets at you? Yeah, that's a great question. The best method is letting off the target and trying again, but it doesn't always work. Cars are much bigger targets than the enemies behind them. So I often joke by calling Crackdown an orb hunting simulator. Crackdown 2 just makes things addictively worse. There are 500 green orbs hidden throughout the city from its lowest depths to its highest annoying reaches, which is the main source of increasing your agility stat. There are 300 blue hidden orbs that offer a small boost to every skill as well. There are 30 green rogue orbs that you must chase down on foot until you can hit it, and the same with rogue purple orbs to catch while you're driving that boost your driving skill. Orbs make this small, shimmering, pulsing sound when there's one nearby, and you can imagine the call and allure of seeing them shining like a beacon on nearly every rooftop, just trying to get that agility up to level 6. There are also several audio logs that can be found from the game's various factions, but aside from collecting them all for an achievement, they really have no other effect. The co-op for Crackdown 2 is still available, and honestly I'd say it's the way I'd recommend playing the game. If one teammate goes down, they can call for help and be revived. Tackling hordes of enemies together is very rewarding. When you engage in races, you have some competition. Now, it was really fun in the first game to race to the top of a really tall structure and then just randomly kick each other off and watch their bodies go flying with ragdoll physics. Unfortunately, you actually do damage to each other with that this time around. When you start meleeing in a group of enemies together, you have little or no control over what target your agent will take next, and often you just send each other flying as well, but that's a small price to pay for the rest of the fun. And with very little story content and tons of bad guys to extinguish, it almost feels like they had co-op in mind when they designed the game. The final thing that's a little bit cheap about this game is I'm pretty sure it's virtually the exact same map as the first one. I mean, yeah, it's a return to the city of Pacific City, but aside from some destruction, seems little effort was really put into this new environment. I'll excuse it because I honestly didn't even notice until we reached the old amusement park very near the starting point of the first game, so it's either been long enough since I played the first, or they just did a really great job with the aesthetics. Crackdown 2 is an open-world adventure superhero game, and rated as such receives a 57 out of 100 on my scale, with 50 being an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.
Wear 'em down.
If you enjoy objective and feature reviews on video games, please feel free to subscribe to my channel for the latest updates. I'm also on Twitter, @UmbraGames.